Welcome guys, this is IXION and here are my pro tips. As with all good survival games, the key to victory is not to lose. So, with that in mind, here are the main ways that you are likely to lose and the best ways to avoid this. The first and most obvious way you lose is hull integrity. So what I recommend, when you open up Sector 2, construct an additional EVA airlock. When you open up Sector 3, construct another airlock, and then the one in Sector 2 you can now delete and replace with a factory, a steel mill. So you're going to want, once all 6 bases, sectors are filled, you're going to want your original one in Sector 1, one in Sector 3, one in Sector 5, and one in Sector 6. You don't have to have them in all them sectors, the specific sectors, but you're going to want 4 EVA airlocks by the end of the game. The other thing is battery. You're going to need enough battery to be able to keep your hull integrity up as you're moving. If you run out of battery while moving, your EVA airlocks will stop repairing your ship. So before you move, hover over the place you want to move to and it will tell you how many cycles it will take to get there. You can then hover over this power button and see if you've got enough battery in each sector. As you can see, in Sector 1, 2, 3 and 4 we don't have enough battery, so you would then go into Sector 1, 2, 3 and 4, whichever ones you don't have enough battery, and you can delete housing or anything else, farms, anything that you can live without, and replace them with batteries. The next most common way of losing is low stability. So if you're in Sector 1 at the start of the game and you don't build any stability buildings and you fill it with housing, farms and the like, then by the time you get far enough in the game you'll start to lose stability with these penalties and your trust will go down. You've only got a limited amount of time before the trust hits 0 to rectify this problem. So rather than waiting for that to happen, I recommend reserving the space for these buildings to begin with, and then you can build them without having to demolish anything straight from the start. So in Sector 1, as you're designing this sector, place these buildings down and just put them on pause construction. Then when you need the stability, you can then just click on it and unpause the construction. It will save you a lot of time and effort, and it won't be risky having to delete things if you don't have the storage to deconstruct things. You need to then wait for all of your drones to move resources around. You're going to want to construct every stability building at your disposal, apart from the Legislative Strengthening Centre. This one's only necessary if you're low on stability, where if you construct all of the others, you're very unlikely to be low on stability until you get to the very end of the game. At which point, when you get at the end of the game, you can then build other things like the Exo Fighting Dome, train stations as well. If you build train stations, then this will add a bonus to your stability for each train station built. And the DLS Centre, you can increase stability in the DLS Centre as well. You can also increase stability by changing some of these, but what I find, if you build all of the stability buildings, you can then use the policies to your advantage, because you'll have extra stability to play with. You can then restrict food so it doesn't cost as much food, and increase working hours to intense so you don't need as many workers. You can also put waste recycling on, which is one of the most important features of the game. You want to do this fairly early so you can start building up a stockpile of waste. One more thing that you can do to increase the stability is to upgrade your housing. For each level of housing that you upgrade, you get an extra stability. I think you need approximately 51% or more of that particular type of housing to get the bonus. So you can see here we've got +2 from people living in optimized quarter. So you get +1 for people living in standard quarters, +2 for the optimized quarters, and +3 for the demotic quarters. And you just need 51% or more to get that bonus. The next most common way of losing the game is by taking in too many cryopods. So it takes a long time to defrost these cryopods, and once you've taken them in, you can't get rid of them. So every 250 cryopods that you have on board your ship, you get a -1 to your stability. So if you take on board 1,000 cryopods all in one go, then you'll get a -4 stability penalty, which is obviously going to cause a lot of problems, and things can start having a domino effect, and things can go downhill very rapidly. So what I recommend, if I can click the right button, have all of these check marked off so you don't accidentally take on cryopods until you are ready to. Then just check mark one ship at a time, and while you're doing that, keep an eye up here to see how many you're intaking. In fact, don't just keep an eye up here, because the cryopods that are in your docking bay don't get added up here. So you'll need to actually keep an eye on the docking bay itself to see how many that you're intaking, because I think this can hold about 400, approximately around that amount. So you can end up getting 400 in here stored that you're unaware of if you're in a different sector. Because you're looking up here, that sector is filling up with cryopods and you're unaware of it happening, which can then, like I say, have a domino effect and things can go downhill very rapidly. The next most common way of losing the game is having accidents and strikes happen, which will disable buildings. So if you have injured people and your infirmary gets disabled, then you will start to lose people. You start to get deaths, and deaths will increase your stability penalty permanently. The other thing is the mess hall. If you get an accident or a strike that knocks out a mess hall, then people can starve to death. So to prevent this from happening, have 2 infirmaries and 2 mess halls in every sector. That way, if one of them gets knocked out, you've got a backup to replace it. A good way to prevent accidents from happening is to make sure that you have enough workers in each sector. So as you can see, we don't have enough workers in this sector, so you can get buildings that keep getting damaged, and you want to prevent that from happening. So to prevent that from happening, make sure each sector has got a surplus of approximately 20 workers in every sector. So on the right hand side it tells you what you need minimum, which is 181. So you're going to want approximately 200 workers in this sector to prevent buildings from getting damaged. The next most common way of losing is having transportation problems. The most likely time that this is going to happen is when you convert to having all of your food being produced in one sector to supply your whole ship. This sector then will need to not only supply the whole ship but collect the food from each one of the farms. So it's got two jobs to do: collection and distribution. And so you only get 5 drones per storage bay. So if you only had one storage bay, it's only got 5 drones to be able to collect and distribute to all of the different sectors. So one thing that you might want to do, rather than having these medium stockpiles, which obviously hold more food, but they only have 5 drones still, you might want to prefer to have the single ones, the small ones, so in the same amount of space you get 10 drones instead of 5 drones. This will significantly help your distribution. Also, drone bays. Drone bays are fantastic at helping to distribute resources. So when you move over to a farm in one sector to supply the whole ship, I recommend building a drone bay as soon as possible. And like I say, just build small storage bays for the extra drones. You're obviously going to need transportation for the iron, so you don't lose from losing your hull integrity. So make sure every sector, that has an EVA airlock has got maximum on its alloy. That way you'll always get alloy being distributed to the sectors that have the EVA airlocks. If you are running low on iron, like I am now, then divide the amount of airlocks that you have in the ship by the amount of alloy that you've got. So if you've got 4 airlocks like I have now, then you're going to want 200 in each one of them, because we've got 800. So you can then click on here and type in how much you need: 200. After you reach a certain point in the game, and I think it's based on how many sectors that you've got unlocked, potentially on the 5th sector I believe, you're going to start having fires break out in all of your sectors. So when you start to get to sector 5, you're going to need to make sure you have a fire station in every sector to deal with fires. You don't really need the upgrades for the fire station. Just a single fire station with no upgrades should be plenty for each sector. If you don't have enough storage bays, it can be very difficult to transfer goods from one storage bay to another. So if all of these storage bays were full, we can't delete any building because it's got nowhere for the storage to go to, the iron to go to. So always have too much storage rather than just the perfect amount, for in case you need to delete buildings. So what I advise is, before you finish an entire sector with buildings, open up the next sector, so in an emergency you've got space in both sectors to be able to build extra storage bays. The main issue being, you can't jettison resources. So once you've got loads of resources on your ship, your only option is to move them around. You can't get rid of them. So waste is one example. You can end up getting far too much waste, and you've got to store it. You have no option of purging it once you've stored it. So always make sure you have too much storage. running out of power can also become a problem. So although it can't immediately kill you, because you can just disable buildings, it can make life very challenging. So I recommend trying to upgrade to maximum power, building all of the solar panels as fast as possible. So every time you move to a new sector, the first resource I recommend collecting is the carbon, just so you can keep converting it into solar panels. If you don't have enough solar panels or carbon to build the solar panels, then using research to increase your power is another good alternative. You can get a significant amount of power from adding these solar panel researches. There are a couple of others that will save a little bit of power. So if you've got a lot of waste treatment, that's the one. If you have a lot of waste treatment facilities, then you can save 5 power per waste treatment facility. You can also save a little bit of power from the steel mills as well. So if you've got 3 steel mills, you can save 12 power. If you have 4 waste treatment facilities, then you can save 20 power. These are obviously not quite as good as the solar panels themselves, but it can still help you if you need it. Other tips that I recommend that don't involve losing the game or preventing loss of game, but can help you improve your quality of life, let's say, to make things easier, give you more freedom to actually do what you want to do, is expanding to new sectors early and often. So at first you may think you don't want to expand because of the hull penalty from opening new sectors, but you will quickly get enough iron to actually deal with this problem, so don't be afraid of opening new sectors. As you can see, we've hardly got any iron at the moment, but when you open a new sector, the new sector is full of resources, which will then replace all of the iron that you spent to open it in the first place. So my next recommendation, when opening a new sector, you're obviously going to build the essentials, some storage bays, the workshop, housing, medical centre and a mess hall. Also make sure that you put some food in here to be distributed so people don't starve. But then before you start to build things, design out your entire sector before you build anything. This way you're going to completely maximize all of the space that you have available. So here the only space that we've not used is these 6 spaces here, but this farm is going to get changed into a DLS centre. I just haven't unlocked it yet. So once this DLS centre's up, the only space then that isn't used in this facility are these few spaces here and these 2 spaces here and 1 here as well. So make sure before you build anything, design the entire sector, then put everything on pause. Then when you want to build something, you can just click on it, hit on pause and build what you want, and everything will be exactly where it needs to be without you needing to think on your feet every time you want to build something. So pause, design your whole base, and then unpause each one of these when you need it. And finally, this is how I recommend building each sector. So the first sector, you're just going to want it self-sufficient with insect farms, housing, storage, a mixed bag. Second sector is your industrial sector. So this is going to have all of the factories in. Third sector is your recycling center or sector. So this has got recycling, and it also doubles up as a storage sector. So you can store all of your waste and any other resources that you can't fit in your other sectors. Usually polymer and things like that that you transfer over from the industrial sector. Your fourth sector is going to be your food distribution sector. So this is going to be where you build all of your farms. Drone bay to help distribute, and storage bays. You're obviously going to need a fusion center, and then later on a water treatment center when you run out of water. The fifth sector is primarily housing and colonization. So this is to put all of your non-workers ready for training up to be colonists, and you'll also have extra storage in here to ease the load on some of the other sectors. And then finally, Sector 6, this is going to be your Cryopod defrosting sector and your nuclear power plant sector. And I usually build a second drone bay in here to help with distribution. So this is going to be a place where you're going to be storing all of your hydrogen and defrosting all of your colonists or workers, non-workers, all of your people to become colonists. So that concludes my pro tips. I hope you found it helpful and enjoy the game. Take care guys, see you soon.